Alright, hello everyone, welcome back. It's that time of the week. It's time for some more ERA, and today we arrive at Zandvoort for round 3 of the Season 2 Championship, as we see Dexy taking some interesting tire heating strategies. But today it is a sprint qualifying format. As you can see, we've just hopped into a 25% race with a reverse championship order. And that gives us the perfect opportunity to see who's leading the championship. So obviously, T FIFA in the lead of the championship after winning the first race and finishing P2 in Hungary. And he's had a solid campaign so far, and looking to extend his lead in the championship. Leighton following closely behind though, after having 2 decent results and winning the last race out, getting P4 in the season opener. We have Seb in P3 in the championship, as he scored 2 P3s this season. Actually, he got P4 last race with Paco getting his penalty removed, and that puts Paco in P4 in the championship. Chronic wasn't able to make the last race, that's why he's in 5th in the championship. Samuel Beach putting in some decent performances, that put him at 6th place in the championship. Coulter also getting decent performances and looking to get his team that constructors title. He's in 6th in the championship. H missed the first race, or didn't miss the first race, DNF'd in the first race, but was able to get a top 5 in the second race, if I'm not mistaken. The Toe hasn't scored any points yet. He scored 1 point, or 2 points even, at the season opener. Dexy hasn't scored any points, and NLR Sparks and Formula Jonah are both reserves for today. And since they have 0 championship points, they are starting on the front row together. So let's see how it all plays out as the drivers are getting ready to start this sprint qualifying race, as we have 5 red lights. They're gone and we're away. What kind of start is it for our pole man, Formula Jonah? And it doesn't look like the best one, up against Sparks, who actually takes the lead coming into turn 1. H moving himself up 2 positions up into P3 already. Coulter makes a mistake. That's a yellow flag in the background. He's dropped down to the very back of the grid. H trying to find his way past Formula Jonah to get himself up into P2 in this Grand Prix. Let's see if he can make the move work. As you can see, trying to go side by side into this next left-hander is putting him under a bit of pressure from Dexy behind, who's lost a position off of the start. Chronic right behind them and waiting for the perfect opportunity. As you can see there, H really struggling in the dirty air as Dexy goes down his inside in that last right-hander, and Dexy moves himself up into P3, and it looks like Samuel Beach from so far back is going to try and go down the inside on Chronic. Can he get a better exit than Chronic and get himself up into P5? And it looks like the answer is yes. Chronic cannot fight that one back, and he's going to fall down to P6 in this race. So Sparks takes the lead of this Grand Prix and sprint race, and moves up into P1. Formula Jonah falling behind, isn't able to stay within that 1 second gap, and neither is Dexy, who's now under pressure from H as wheels banging, and that has caused H to spin, and one of the Alpines is spun as well. I think that's Leighton who's had a spin there in the background. Both for the Mercedes going side by side. Dexy trying to hold it around the outside, but Samuel Beach gets the move done. Chronic now trying to take advantage of this situation, and Chronic gets up into P4, and that's a spin for Leighton. T FIFA's also got wing damage, and sad to see from H. Sadly, Dexy, I didn't think he left enough space there, and I'm sure the stewards will have a little look into that one to see exactly what happened. And it's been a decent start for some drivers and not the best for others, as we see Paco now going down the inside of Toe. He's gone a bit too deep though, so Toe is going to fight back around the outside into this next left-hander, and it looks like Paco is going to get that move done nice and clean. So Paco up into P7. But as you can see, Sparks takes the lead off of the start of this sprint race. That's a good start from him. I'm sure he'll be very happy with that one. And Formula Jonah obviously falls down to P2, but has broken the DRS to Samuel Beach behind, as Sparks on the medium tyres sets the fast lap of the Grand Prix. We then have Samuel Beach in P3, Chronic in P4, getting a great start, the both of them moving up 4 positions. Dexy falling down to P5, Seb getting up into P6 as he's now trying to make a move on Dexy, but cannot find a way past as he tries to go for the switchback with the better exit, and it looks like he might be able to make this move sick with the soft compound tyres, and it looks like he's going to move himself up into P5, but Dexy is going to try and fight back, tries to go down the inside there, but that is never going to work, so Seb maintains P5 for now, but Dexy is going to be putting him under quite a bit of pressure, so he's going to have to watch out for that one. So Seb moving up the most positions so far, up into P5, but then we see the Toe not having the best of starts. H obviously spinning on the first lap. Coulter also making a mistake on the first lap. T-FIFA and Leighton both had to box for new front wing. So now if we have a quick look at the tyre strategy, you can see NLR Sparks on the medium tyres pulled away 3 seconds from Formula Jonah and is looking really good in this race. He's going to be on the softs at the end, and that's going to give him a massive pace advantage. Formula Jonah and all the way down to P5 on the soft tyres. We now have Paco trying to make the move on Dexy, and went down the inside into turn 1. Dexy going to try and fight back with the switchback, but Paco has the better exit and is now the second medium runner and is going to try and catch up to the rest of the soft runners. And as you can see there, T-FIFA and Leighton mixing up their strategies as they had to box on the first lap. T-FIFA on the hard tyres. I'm sure the mediums could have made it to the end, but he's going conservative, and that might cost him some time in the long run. So we now have a big battle for P2 currently going on, with Formula Jonah currently in that P2 position. Coming out of turn 10 now, but onto this long DRS straight. He's going to be under pressure from Samuel Beach, and Samuel Beach is able to get that move done with the power of the DRS and makes the move before the braking zone. Formula Jonah following quite closely behind though, and might be looking to get past. Chronic in the background waiting for an opportunity, and so is Seb now coming on out of the final turn and onto the pit straight, where we do have a dose of the DRS. Chronic pulling out of the slipstream, and he's pulling alongside too. He's going to try and make the move on Formula Jonah, and down the inside into turn 1 he's able to get that move done nice and easy, and moves himself up into P3 in that Ferrari after missing the last round. He'll be looking to score some decent points today, and let's see if that's what he can do. Is that Seb now getting past Formula Jonah, and it looks like Formula Jonah was able to break the DRS in the early stages, but is now struggling for pace with these guys, as Paco has now caught up to the DRS of the soft runners, and that's going to put him in a very good position in this race, and especially the later stages. But as we see now, Samuel Beach is going to be the man defending P2 out of turn 10 onto this DRS straight. Can he defend from Chronic, who's right behind him, and with the DRS doesn't get close enough coming into turn 11, and Samuel Beach maintains P2 for now, but is under some serious pressure from someone who'll be looking to go for the championship. And both Ferrari drivers in P1 and P3, that is going to do them wonders in the constructors, but this is only the sprint race, and this is going to determine where you're going to qualify for the 50% race, as Chronic now makes the move on Samuel Beach, and so does Paco on Formula Jonah. Paco down the inside on the medium tyres, gets that move done, moves himself up into P5. Chronic tried to make the move on Samuel Beach, just couldn't make it work, struggling to find a way past the Mercedes, and he's going to have to try and get the best exit out of turn 10 onto that long DRS straight, and give himself the best opportunity coming into turn 11, as you see, following very, very closely coming into this right-hander banking, and he's going to be quite close coming into this turn 10, but let's see if he thinks about a move coming out of turn 10. So as you can see, following quite closely once again, what kind of exit can he get out of here with the DRS now enabled under no pressure from Seb behind, as he's able to defend with the power of the DRS. Can't get close enough to Samuel Beach, but there's a DRS zone once again coming out of the final 2 turns that we're now entering. And as you can see, Formula Jonah really struggling for pace now outside of the DRS of the medium runner of Paco, and it looks like his soft tyres might be wearing quite quickly, as Samuel Beach is going to defend the inside line. This is going to allow Chronic to go around the outside, and Chronic just has so much more grip, brakes so much later, and moves himself up into P2. And it's now a Ferrari 1-2 with Sparks constantly pulling away. Now got the gap up to 6 seconds in this Grand Prix. And Paco also in a very good position. Could be looking at P2 if he makes no mistakes, gets onto those soft tires and is a lot faster than everyone else, which hopefully he is, but we'll have to see. As just about staying within that DRS, you can see Seb following very closely to the back of Samuel Beach and trying to size up a move as we now go through turn 10. And Seb is very, very close to the back of Samuel Beach and could be looking for a move on the pit straight, as he will have the DRS. As you can see, very late braking into there, just about missed his braking point and just about missed the gearbox of Samuel Beach ahead of him. Keeps his nose nice and tidy and doesn't get any damage because of that. And it looks like Sparks is going to be going for quite a big undercut as he now comes into pit lane on the mediums and is going to the softs to the end of the race. So he thinks that the softs can last quite long in this race, and this could gain him a lot of time as he's undercutting all of the soft runners. So it will be interesting to see how that plays out. And it looks like he comes out just ahead, or maybe just behind of the toe. And it looks like the toe is just about going to lose out on that position. Sparks just about getting out ahead of the toe. And that's going to put him P7 in this race. He's now going to be chasing down the leaders to try and gain as much time as possible. You can see here, Seb is so good at following in the dirty air and just following so closely to Samuel Beach, who's also doing the same to Chronic ahead of him. And all of these drivers could be looking for a move soon enough, but Paco is just going to stay in the background and wait until the soft tire stint to start making moves, possibly save up some ERS for some strong push laps on his next stint. But if we check the gap between NLR Sparks and the leaders, it's already down to 9 seconds. So Sparks really making this undercut work. He's got some great pace so far, and the reserve driver really showing everyone what he's made of. And as you can see there, Paco just gaining so much time braking into the pit lane. And as you can see, Seb is now going to look for the move on Samuel Beach around the outside at turn 2 now, but he has to back out of that move. That move is not going to work. But he now tries to go around the outside at turn 3, and that's also not going to work. Tries to get a decent exit, but Samuel Beach is going to maintain the lead for now. Where does Chronic come out relative to his teammate? And it looks like he's quite far behind, and he was about 6 seconds behind before the stops. Now about 10 seconds behind NLR Sparks, who's really showing some great pace in this Grand Prix as he sets a purple Sector 1 on the soft compound tyres. Seb still behind Samuel Beach, waiting for his opportunity, but when are these two drivers going to box? Are they going to stretch it to lap 10, as NLR Sparks thinks they can go? Or are they going to come in a little earlier for the undercut? We'll have to see as we now come into turn 13, which leads us into the banking of turn 14. Let's see which two of these drivers box, if they box at all. Samuel Beach pulling to the right hand side. No, he does not. But Seb with a late move to the right hand side, cutting the white line there, and really leaving it quite late to come into the pit lane, as Sparks has the fast lap at the Grand Prix, a 1:12 flat on the soft tyres. That's a great time from him, and really pushing his car for all it's worth. 7.1 seconds behind Samuel Beach. He's just gained so much time because of that undercut. But Paco looks like he's trying to make the move on his old rival Chronic, and now has the outside line for turn 2, just about leaving each other enough space. And with the power of the fresh soft tyres, he's got a lot more pace than Chronic's medium tyres, and Paco moved himself up into P4. And the Toe and Samuel Beach still to stop in this race. Paco could be looking at qualifying on the front row for the feature race tonight, and we'll have to see if he can maintain his position. And those soft tyres are definitely going to give him quite a big advantage over the rest of the drivers. And as you can see here, coming out of turn 10 now, Chronic not close enough to go for a move on his mediums, but he is improving on his best time that he did on soft tyres. He is showing some good pace as Samuel Beach now comes into pit lane, stretched the soft tyres a little longer than his other rivals, as NLR Sparks at a 1:11.4, An absolutely rapid time to set in the race as the tow just passes Samuel Beach there. Samuel Beach coming out of the pit lane now, and you can see the drivers ahead of him. Where is he going to come out compared to them? It looks like he's going to come out just behind Seb, so the undercut has really worked out for those guys, and that Samuel Beach is just outside the DRS of Seb, so he's going to have to push quite hard to get back within that DRS, but he does have the fresher tyres compared to everyone else, so that will give him a slight advantage over the other drivers, and maybe that tenth or two is all he needs, as it looks like Sparks makes a mistake at turn 9. He spun the car, and the tow now catching up to the back of him. The tow takes the lead of the Grand Prix, but even after that spin from Sparks, he's still looking good in this race. Still has P2. His tyres might be a little overheated as he gets a dose of the DRS from the tow ahead of him, but Paco is still outside that DRS of Sparks, and obviously that really big lead has helped him out massively, because after that spin he's still in a net P1, and the tow will be looking to box soon enough. Will he come into pit lane this lap, as it looks like he's actually staying out, so Sparks is going to get the DRS once again, and it looks like Paco might be able to take advantage of the situation and get into the DRS of Sparks, who's now being hauled up by the tow, who's on old mediums. The Sparks just trying to find a way past, goes down the inside into turn 2, and it's a dodgy move, and he's collided with the tow, and that has caused the tow to spin, or at least a half spin, and this is going to put him under quite a bit of pressure from Chronic behind, but that was a bit of a dodgy move and a bit of a desperate move from Sparks, who desperately needed to get past as Chronic goes sailing down the inside with the power of the fresh mediums at turn 7. That was a great move there from Chronic, as Seb now goes down the inside of the tow into turn 9, and looks like he's going to be able to make that move stick, but I'm sure the stewards will have to be looking into that one, and that's really going to influence whether or not Sparks will get a full-time seat, so he needs to keep it nice and clean for the rest of this sprint and the feature race as well. We've still got an entire feature race to go, so plenty of laps of racing tonight here in ERA. So Paco now in the DRS of Sparks, and they both have fresh softs, but Paco has the fresher softs, and he could be looking at pole position after what was looking like a front row for him. He could turn it into a pole position. Chronic now falling outside the DRS of the top 2 with his mediums, and that's going to put him under quite heavy pressure from Seb behind. Formula Jonah falling all the way down to P7, and behind Dexy, who's currently on the soft tyres, and the Mercedes in 5th and 6th, looking at a pretty decent qualifying. T FIFA also, at least after making a mistake in the early stages and breaking his front wing, he's down in P9. That's not the qualifying he would have wanted for his championship battle. Leighton also right behind him as well. The top 2 in the championship not having the best of races, as you can see the tow down in 11th, and it looks like Coulter has sadly disconnected from the session. Only have 12 drivers here today. Attendance has been quite poor lately, but hopefully we see it get a little better. And as we watch the battle for the lead in this Grand Prix, Sparks currently has that lead with Paco right behind him, but he does have the DRS on Sparks ahead of him, and could be looking for a move anytime soon. And as we come into turn 1, it looks like a yellow flag in the background. That's a mistake from Dexy, and he's just gone into the wall there and broken his front wing for good measure. So that is going to lose him a lot of time. He's now going to have to come into the pit lane to repair that, and that is going to put him at the back of the grid for today's main race, and that's not going to be what he wanted out of this qualifying, as he smashes into the wall there after the understeer he got from a broken front wing and gets himself a 5-second penalty. But it won't matter too much, as he's going to be quite far behind the tow once he comes out of the pit lane, and that moves Formula Jonah and everyone else behind him up 1 position. So at least T FIFA and Leighton moving themselves up 1 position into P8 and P9 now. But looks like Paco just sitting in the DRS of Sparks and waiting for a later lap to go on the move. As you can see, they're not using any ERS out of these turns, just trying to conserve it, and towards the end of the sprint race will probably be looking for a move when Sparks cannot fight back. As you can see, Sparks has a similar amount of ERS, but he still has to push quite hard to keep Paco behind him, and that could lead to another mistake, which is exactly what he doesn't want. Seb has actually gotten past Chronic, sadly missed that, but Seb with the fresher tyres moved himself up into P3, and could be looking at a decent qualifying here. And Chronic is still going to be putting a lot of pressure on Seb though, so Seb is going to have to watch out. Although Chronic does have slightly more worn tyres, and you can see that doesn't have the most grip coming into these turns. A little bit of a slide there coming into turn 9, and manages to keep it on track as Seb now almost getting back into the DRS of Paco ahead of him, and he's actually got it for this straight. This is big for Seb. Even with the medium tyres, he's able to get in the DRS of Paco, and he's now setting personal best in the middle sector. Seb absolutely flying at this stage of the sprint race, and as Sparks is about to cross the line, we're only going to have 3 laps of racing to go, and not too many laps to make their moves. But as you can see here, Seb has that DRS. He's been able to pull away from Chronic because of that, so hanging into the DRS of the top 2, and as the top 2's soft tyres start to fall off, this could bring Seb into the battle for pole position, and it looks like 3 is his lucky number. He's come 3rd in every race so far, but it looks like a mistake there, and that's a bit of wheel spin coming out of turn 3, and that's cost him the DRS of the top 2, and is now going to put Chronic back in the DRS of Seb, and that's a shame to see. He could have been battling for pole position, but after that slight mistake, he's lost just enough time to get himself out of the DRS of Paco ahead of him. So you only have 2.5 laps to go, and you need to make every lap count at this stage of the sprint qualifying. As you can see here, Paco playing this quite nicely, saving up the ERS, staying in the DRS of Sparks, doesn't want to overtake him. Used a little bit of ERS there coming out of turn 12, which is interesting to see. He could be looking for a move, but it looks like he's going to try and catch Sparks off guard. Uses a bit of ERS coming through turn 14, and with the power of the DRS is able to move himself up into P1, but he's now going to have to defend from Sparks behind for the next 2 laps as we enter the penultimate lap of the Grand Prix. Chronic also looking to try and get P3 in this race, as T-FIFA and Leighton also battling it out. It looks like T-FIFA's hard tyres are not working for him, as Leighton has gotten him ahead of him and himself up into P8. So as we see here, Sparks following nice and closely to the back of Paco, and will be looking for a move anytime soon now to try and get himself pole position for the feature race, and he just needs to make sure that he doesn't make any mistakes. And with the power of the DRS and the ERS, he should be looking for a move on the main pit straight here. As you can see, Paco not really using any of his ERS, whereas Sparks using quite a bit of his ERS there on the DRS straight to try and get as close as he can for this next pit straight, which should be one of the final overtaking opportunities in this sprint race. So let's see if he can take advantage of it. Paco using all of his ERS to make sure Sparks doesn't get past. This red light is now flashing, but Paco has maintained the lead as Sparks goes for a very late move and desperate to get pole position, and that has cost him a front row finish, and a bit of a silly mistake there from Sparks. You better hope that he does not have wing damage, otherwise Samuel Beach will be looking for quite an easy move. Seb has now caught up to the back of Paco, as that's obviously compromised Paco, give him a bit of a slide. So Sparks not showing the cleanest of racing so far in ERA, as Seb is now going to go down the inside of Paco, going through turn 7. That's a great move from him. Chronic now looking to capitalise, and he tries to go down the inside of turn 9 there. Can't make that move work. A little bit of sliding there as he now goes down the inside into turn 10, and out of nowhere it seemed like, as Paco just does not have the grip on these old softs, and Sparks was looking so good for pole position, but after a silly mistake is going to cost him, and was obviously very desperate to get pole, and he's going to be having to ask himself, was it worth it? And I don't think it was, but Seb now comes across the line and is going to get pole position, and he was looking at a best result of a P3 in the later stages of this race, but has been able to convert it to a pole position. and that is a good result from Seb there. Chronic managing to get onto the front row, and after Paco and Sparks made that contact, it really compromised Paco and put him down into P3, with Sparks getting P4. Samuel Beach finishes P5. Formula Jonah in his first race in ERA finishes P6 in the sprint race. H managing to qualify P7, but only 17 thousandths ahead of Leighton, just about edging him out. And T FIFA finishes P9, not the best result for him. The Toe finishes P10, and the decent qualifying position for him. Coulter, whose disconnected car, starts P11, so I don't think Coulter will be racing in the main race, which will promote Dexy up into P11, but it looks like Dexy is also disconnected. Hopefully they can join back for the main race, and if they can, looks like we might only have 10 runners, which is definitely a shame to see. But that is the end of the sprint qualifying, and a very exciting one at that. Seb getting driver of the day, starting from P10 and moving himself all the way up into P1. That's a good race from him, but now have to set up the grid for the main race, which should be starting hopefully within the next 5 to 10 minutes. But there is your podium for the sprint race, although there shouldn't really be a podium, as it is only the battle for pole position. But Seb throwing a champagne around nonetheless. So I hope to see you guys in the next 5 to 10 minutes as I set up the grid for the feature race, which will, that's the big points for tonight's race. And Seb's put himself in the best position, but Chronic will be breathing down his neck. And Sparks, after looking so good, has really compromised his qualifying position. We'll have to see how it all plays out as we get into the feature race. All right, welcome back, everyone. It's now time for the feature race, where every driver has the free choice of tire, and using their qualifying positions from the sprint race. Let's have a quick look at the strategy. With Seb on pole position, decides to go for the alternate strategy, starting on the medium tires, whereas Chronic and Paco behind him will be on the softs and hunting him down for the first couple of laps. With Sparks also starting on the mediums, H decides to opt for the mediums, T FIFA on the mediums to tow, and Dexy starting on the mediums. Leighton, Formula Jonas, Samuel Beach, XD Paco, and Chronic all starting on the medium compound of tyre. So, or on the soft tyre even. So, it's going to be interesting strategy-wise, as it looks like half of the grid on the softs and half of the grid on mediums, but technically 6 on mediums and 5 on softs. So it looks like the alternate strategy is the preferred strategy. We'll have to see how it plays out, because the less people on softs there is, the more powerful the strategy is, and the less people on mediums there is, the more powerful that strategy is. So the softs could have a more powerful strategy, but we'll have to see how it all plays out. Seb managing to grab that pole position after exciting sprint race qualifying, and he's going to have Chronic right behind him, Paco in P3 and Sparks in P4. Leighton and T FIFA not having the best of sprint qualifying, both of them in the championship battle, and they're in P1 and 2, and Seb's in P3, and he's starting 7 positions ahead of them. So Seb has really put himself in a good position for tonight's Grand Prix, and could be looking at a serious game championship-wise, but anything can happen, and Leighton and T FIFA can definitely make a comeback, as Dexy lining up onto the grid to get ready for the race start. As looks like all the drivers are now lined up on the grid, with Seb on pole position. We have 5 red lights. They're gone and we're away. What kind of start is it for our pole man up against Chronic? And it looks like a decent one, and Seb is able to maintain P1 at the start of this Grand Prix. Looks like Sparks going down the inside into turn 1 on Paco. This is allowing Samuel Beach to make the move on Paco too. Samuel Beach having a good start there, so does Sparks. Paco not having the best of starts there, and Leighton moves all the way up into P6. Formula Jonah falling all the way down to P9. It's not been the best start from him. He's all the way down to P10 now. That's not going to be the start he would have wanted, starting on those soft tyres. Chronic putting Seb under a bit of pressure with his teammate right behind him, and it looks like Seb has managed to maintain the lead for now, but with Chronic on soft tyres, he'll be looking to attack at every corner and make these softs work while he has them and while they're fresh. So as we see now, coming out of turn 10, no DRS yet, we're only on lap 1. Chronic's teammate Sparks now looking at the move going into turn 11, but he's not going to commit to that, as that's a dangerous place to make a move. The 2 Alpines now together, as Leighton has a good start, whereas Paco not having the best of start, and they meet in the middle in P5 and P6, both on soft tyres. Samuel Beach is following quite closely to the back of NLR Sparks there, and it doesn't look like anyone looking for a move into turn 1. Sparks has some good grip going into there, and was almost looking around the outside of Chronic. He's not going to commit to a move that late, and Seb on the medium tyres has maintained P1 for the opening lap, and I'm sure he'll be happy with that start. The 2 Alpines now looking to try and overtake Samuel Beach, and these 2 teammates really love to work together, and are going to be pushing for that Constructors title, and both of them will most likely also be pushing for the Drivers title, and there might be some conflict there as Sparks goes for a late move into turn 9. That was never going to work on Chronic, who thankfully leaves the space, but looks like Sparks goes for some desperate lunges every now and again, but it looks like Dexy has DNF from the session on lap 2, out of going into turn 10. Must have made contact somewhere, or possibly a bit too much wheel spin coming out of turn 9, but that has now caused the virtual safety car to be deployed, and it's not been the best weekend for Dexy, qualifying last place and DNFing on lap 2. I'm sure he's not going to be happy with that one, whereas his teammate currently up in P4 and trying to make a move on Sparks ahead of him, who is on the medium compound of tyres and a lot slower at this stage of the Grand Prix, as the virtual safety car can end at any moment. And it must have been contact with the toe, who now comes into pit lane for a new front wing, and maybe it was an incident between Dexy and the toe. It looks like this is a very incident-prone race. Hopefully we don't see more of that, but Sparks just carrying too much speed through turn 3, hits into the back of his teammate, thankfully doesn't get himself a penalty, and he's going to have to hope that he doesn't have wing damage coming into there. It looked like it might have been a bit of understeer, but coming through this turn he's lost quite a bit of time to his teammate ahead as we come into turn 8. Oh, sorry, it's still the virtual safety car. I had no idea why I thought it had ended. A bit embarrassing for me, but it looks like the toe gets a drive-through penalty from jumping the virtual safety car restart, as Sparks gets a good exit compared to his teammate. The DRS is now enabled. Sparks looking for a move into turn 11, and can he make this move stick on his Ferrari teammate? Goes really deep into there. Chronic predicts it and tries to go for the switchback, but such a tight corner, he's not able to make that work. Seb has now pulled out of the DRS of Sparks, and this is going to allow Chronic to put some extra pressure on Sparks ahead of him. He's going to be pushing hard to get into the DRS of Seb, and Samuel Beach now getting close to the back of Chronic, who has a look around the outside as Sparks goes a bit defensive into turn 1, as the 3 drivers pushing each other through the turns. And we now come into turn 3, and Sparks still not in the DRS of Seb on those medium tyres, so it looks like the top 2 both on mediums, and it looks like everyone on the mediums has made mistakes, including T FIFA, who's had to come into pit lane for a new front wing, and that is going to cost him heavily in the championship and in this race. He still will get a point for finishing this race, as there's only 10 runners left, sadly, but all of them giving us a show. And it looks like a mistake there from Paco, a bit too much wheel spin coming out of turn 9, and that has caused him to spin and lose so much time to the guys in front of him. His tyres are a bit overheated. He's going to have to be gentle into these next few turns, but that is a shame to see from Paco, as it looks like he has another spin coming out of turn 10. Just try to get it on the power a bit too early on overheated tyres. He's now lost his entire front wing, and he's now going to have to come into pit lane because of that. So he could have got back underway, but after that second mistake, it's now going to cost him an entire pit stop. So Paco essentially out of this race, unless we see another safety car, as the toe getting past him there. That now moves Leighton and everyone else behind him up a position, as Leighton, looking around the outside of Samuel Beach, does not have the grip to go around the outside there. So he's just going to follow closely behind, but he's now looking a bit opportunistic, as Samuel Beach trying to cut him off, just trying to take the late racing line, and Leighton being very, very aggressive at the back of Samuel Beach, as you see they're swerving all over the shop, and trying to find a way past Samuel Beach to move himself up into P5, but can't find it just yet, as we see Paco coming out of the pit lane now on medium tyres. I'm not sure if he can take those to the end of the race. Chronic has now lost the DRS to his teammate ahead, who's now in the DRS of Seb ahead of him. So the top 2 on mediums are starting to pull away from the soft runners already, so maybe a sign that softs are not the best race tyre. Although from my experience of racing at this track, that wouldn't be right, as the toe makes a mistake there, and that's going to allow T FIFA to get past coming into turn 10, as Sparks hits another fast lap of the Grand Prix, and now looking for a move down the inside into turn 1, goes a bit deep and makes the exact same mistake again. Has this cost Seb any time? Thankfully not, but I'm not too sure if Sparks will be getting a full-time seat coming out of this race weekend. He's gone for a lot of opportunistic moves, and they have not exactly worked out for him, and it's caused him to spin, and it's caused troubles for the drivers that he's racing with. As it looks like the toe actually gets disqualified for ignoring a drive-through penalty, so he is now out of the session, as it looks like one of the Haas cars made a mistake there. Yellow flags for him. NLR Sparks has made another mistake, broken his entire front wing, and essentially out of this race, as you can see there, doing donuts, as he's clearly given up in this Grand Prix. So he must be kicking himself. He could have done so much better, but just some silly opportunistic moves really throwing this race away from him. And looks like he's just going to spin for all eternity now. Hopefully that doesn't bring out the safety car. But as we continue on with this race, Seb still outside of the DRS of Chronic behind him, with Samuel Beach in P3 looking at the back of Chronic, getting quite close to the back of him. Leighton in P4 also trying to find a way past, and from there it's Formula Jonah 4.7 seconds behind, but in a decent P5 for his first race. He'll be happy enough with that, as we now see Leighton once again getting quite close to the back of Samuel Beach, learning not to be as aggressive going into there, because that did not work out for him last time, and could have led to him ending his own race, but thankfully not. Still in this race, an MP4, as we see the Ferrari of NLR Sparks getting out of the way, and looks like just crashed himself into the wall. Hopefully doesn't bring out the safety car, because that wouldn't be the best for some drivers, as we now see Leighton trying to go around the outside at turn 11 on Samuel Beach, and it looks like both drivers leaving each other enough space. Very respectful driving from the two of them, and Leighton moved himself up into P3, but they've now lost the DRS to Chronic ahead of them, and just about managed to get back in for the detection point, if I'm correct, but it looks like I'm wrong, as Leighton doesn't have the DRS for the straight. This is going to allow Samuel Beach to fight back going into turn 1, doesn't go for that late lunge, and Leighton maintains P3 for now and is going to be pushing to get back in the DRS of Chronic ahead of him. But Seb, driving a brilliant race so far on those mediums, has kept all drivers out of his DRS, and looking to win this one, as we are down to just 8 runners, so every driver will be scoring points so long as they don't make any mistakes. So even Paco, who's down in P8 and 51 seconds behind this battle for the lead, will still be getting points in this race. And Seb, really demanding performance from him, as really controlling this race quite nicely, and once he goes on to his soft tire stint, he'll be looking unstoppable compared to everyone else. But right now Leighton in P3 got himself back into the DRS of Chronic ahead of him, and will be looking to battle it out for P2 and maybe try his pace out in front to see if he's faster and can catch up to Seb, as that's what these guys are really aiming for here, to try and catch up to Seb, as it looks like Chronic going for the undercut, as he now comes into pit lane for mediums, but he retires from the session, and he was in such a great position, but maybe he's had to go. I'm really not too sure. Maybe he had to leave, but that's a shame to see. He was looking for a podium in this race, but obviously he's had to leave early, so just retiring in the pit lane there, and yeah, as you can see, just left the session there. So yeah, that's going to lose him quite a few points in this championship, and he's going to be frustrated with that one, obviously having to leave early for something else. So we're now down to just 7 runners, and there might not be too much action from now, as Samuel Beach has almost lost the DRS, and has actually lost the DRS to Leighton, looking to get back into it for the pit straight though, as yeah, down to just 7 runners. It's a shame to see the Toe getting disqualified for not taking his drive-through penalty. Dexy DNFing on lap 2. Sparks making a silly move into turn 1, just like he did in the spring qualifying. Chronic having to leave early, and all 4 of those DNFs are definitely a shame. But it's now down to the rest of the 7 drivers to try and get the best position possible. But T-FIFA and Paco and H aren't going to look like they're going to have any fun, because the chances of a safety car have massively decreased with just 7 runners left. And remember, if you're watching this race and you're wondering why there's such low attendance, it's because we don't have enough drivers. Be sure to join the Discord link in the description of this stream, and make sure you get yourself signed up for ERA, so you can get in on all of this action, racing against people like Chronic, Paco, Leighton, and Seb, Samuel Beach, Formula Jonah, T-FIFA, H, all in this race, and still scrapping it out for any kind of points they can get. But Samuel Beach just trying to hang on to the DRS of Leighton ahead of him, and it looks like they have quite similar pace, and if Samuel Beach could get into his DRS, I'm sure it would really benefit him quite nicely. As you can see, they're not really using any of his ERS to try and catch up to Leighton. Maybe he thinks Leighton is using all of his ERS to defend from Samuel, as looks like H made a mistake there coming out of turn 10, and that has caused him to spin and lose quite a bit of time, and looks like it hasn't actually affected his position, since he is in a bit of a no man's land here. Leighton trying to push nice and hard to catch up to the back of Seb, but looking really good in this race. It's been a good recovery so far. After starting all the way down in P8, he's been able to move himself up into P2, and T-FIFA started right behind him, is now in P5 in this race, and almost every driver moving up positions because of the DNFs, apart from Paco, who obviously had to box for a new front wing, and that's what caused them to go all the way down to P7. But this race is going to continue on, but these might be some push laps for the drivers, as they don't really have to battle with anyone else. Every driver, no driver in this race has the DRS of another driver, so all just pushing as hard as they can to catch up to the guy ahead of them. But so far it doesn't look like anyone is making any progress, as Leighton is maintaining the gap to Seb at just 1.5 seconds. Samuel Beach losing a bit of time to Leighton. Formula Jonah losing a bit of time to Samuel Beach. T-FIFA too far behind Formula Jonah to catch him, unless he finds some really good pace in the mid-stage of this race. So Leighton obviously pushing nice and hard to try and catch up to DRS of Seb ahead of him, or maybe he'll be looking ahead to his medium tyre stint, and that's really going to help him in this race, as once he gets onto those mediums, he'll be able to go for that undercut and possibly get himself out ahead of Seb, but Seb will have those soft tyres. So we'll have to see. As just looking at the Discord there, it looks like Chronic retired from the session because he was bored, even though he had two drivers in his DRS, and they were looking for a good battle for P2, but he's now lost himself so many points in the championship, and yeah, even though there was two drivers behind him, obviously wasn't enough for him, as he retired from the session. So Leighton now making a little bit of progress on Seb ahead of him, but the mediums are going to start to catch up, or are going to start to improve compared to the soft tyres, which are going to start slowing down at any stage now. And Leighton, Samuel Beach, Formula Jonah are all going to have to come into the pit lane for some fresh mediums soon enough, and we'll have to see how that plays out. So right now, Samuel Beach has lost quite a bit of time to Leighton ahead of him, and Formula Jonah also has lost quite a bit of time to Samuel Beach. Paco catching on H, and T-FIFA actually catching on his teammate Formula Jonah now, but currently no driver in each other's DRS. Leighton getting quite close, so just 1/10 off on his soft compound tyres, and he's going to be looking to get within that DRS and possibly get himself up into lead, although the softs are definitely past their best. He's still pushing hard to try and get in that DRS, but he will be boxing for the medium soon, and that's going to give him the chance to try and undercut Seb and possibly even get out ahead of him, but Seb will be hunting Leighton down with those fresh softs. But still quite a few laps until Seb has to come into the pit lane, whereas Leighton should be boxing around lap 16, possibly lap 15 for the medium tyres, and we'll have to see if that's the strategy that he actually goes with, as we're now coming through turn 11. Leighton making progress but not getting close enough to that DRS of Seb ahead of him, and Samuel Beach just losing time to Leighton ahead, and right now not too much action, as none of the drivers can really make any difference on each other. and really take out a gap of the guys ahead of him. So everyone in a bit of a no man's land, and can't really do too much. Actually looks like a bit of a mistake there from Leighton, and that's cost them a bit of time to Seb ahead, about 7/10 to be exact, and that's not really going to help his cause in trying to get in the DRS of Seb, but he'll be looking to box soon, but we'll have to see when that happens. It actually looks like Formula Jonah came into the pit lane for the fresh mediums, and is only 5.5 seconds behind his teammate, and will be looking to overtake. So as it looks like Leighton now comes into pit lane, and so does Samuel Beach for the medium tyres now. So these guys are going to be going for the undercut, obviously starting on the softs rather than the mediums. And let's see how much time they can gain on Seb once he actually comes into the pit lane. As you can see now, Samuel Beach is coming out of the pit lane. T-FIFA a bit too far behind, as he's now on 11-lap-old soft tyres. We will be looking to box in about 4 laps time, maybe 5. We'll have to see how long he stretches these tyres. And it looks like Samuel Beach has actually lost time in the pit lane there. Maybe Leighton pushing the braking point as much as he could to gain any sort of time on Seb ahead of him, and managing to gain time on Samuel Beach behind him, and doing himself a favour in this race. He's now going to be pushing for the next few laps to try and get gain as much time on Seb ahead of him as possible, but Seb will have those soft tyres at the end, and it looks like H makes a mistake there at turn 7, and he's actually retired from the session, as Paco is going to make a nice and easy move on him and move himself up into P6, as we now have just 6 runners left, and really a shame to see such low attendance, and hopefully that will get better in the coming races. But for now, 3 points for all the drivers in the session, and I assume H also got a bit bored with this race, as it seems a lot of drivers are, and yeah, just a real shame to see such low attendance. Hopefully this will be better. Like I said before, if you're watching this and you want a league race on Tuesdays at 8 o'clock, be sure to click the link in the description, join our Discord, and to get signed up so you can race in this league for Season 2 and get in on all this action that we're sadly missing today, as Leighton has now gained about a second on Seb ahead, so he's gaining some decent time on Seb as he sets a purple Sector 2, and he's going a lot faster than Seb, but like I said before, Seb will have those soft tyres, which should be a lot faster than the mediums towards the end of the Grand Prix, as we now reach the halfway mark in this race, and getting closer and closer to the end of this Grand Prix. Leighton managing to gain about 1.5 seconds in 1 lap, and or in 2 laps even, and sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, and is going to get himself that extra championship point there, as it looks like it takes a bit too much curb going into turn 2, and that's going to be a bit of a slide, and as you can see, just continuing to gain time, and Samuel Beach not able to catch up to the back of Leighton, and Formula Jonah also not able to catch up to the back of T-FIFA, even with the fresh mediums and T-FIFA's old softs. And yeah, the race is going to continue on, and it looks like Leighton hasn't actually gained as much time on this lap, so even on worn mediums, Seb's still putting in some decent lap times to keep Leighton as far behind as possible. So it looks like Seb has just come out of the pit lane on the fresh soft compound of tyres, and currently 3 seconds behind Leighton ahead of him. And it looks like he's actually able to get out ahead of Samuel Beach. And he's now going to be on the soft compound of tyres for the next few laps and pushing nice and hard to try and get some decent points in this race and try to go for the race win, as Leighton and Seb can really capitalise from this race. They don't have much competition, so you're definitely going to be able to score some decent points in the championship. And if Seb can overtake Leighton, he's really going to be doing himself a favour, as he sets a purple sector 2. And if he keeps up this pace, he'll be catching up Leighton in no time. The gap now down to 2.4 seconds, and slowly falling down as Seb pushing nice and hard with these tyres. They're going to be a lot faster than the mediums at this stage. As we cross the line, we have just 13 laps to go, as Seb just sets a purple sector 3. As you can see, they're turning in a bit too early because he's just not used to this much grip compared to the old mediums he was on just a moment ago. As now coming out of turn 3 and into this windy section of turn 4, 5, now 6, which brings us to turn 7 as he sets a purple sector 1. He could steal this fastest lap away from Leighton. He did set his time on the medium tyres, so Seb definitely an advantage with these soft tyres, and definitely using the ERS to his advantage too to try and get this extra point a bit wide coming into turn 10 there, as now brought the gap down by about 4/10. So the delta between the softs and the mediums isn't massive, as Seb not gaining as much time as maybe he would have thought he would on the soft tyres compared to Leighton's old mediums, but he has caught another 2/10, and this pace is definitely strong, as he does actually set a 12.5, and it looks like that is going to put his fastest lap just 1/10 behind Leighton, so he's missing out on that one extra point by just 1/10. And it looks like Leighton and Seb the only people that have been able to dip into the 112s in this Grand Prix, as we saw Sparks in the sprint race managing to get to those kind of times, as Seb pushing nice and hard to try and catch up to Leighton. Paco also quite close to back of T FIFA, who actually steals away the fastest lap point from Leighton, and he's going to give that to himself, and that's definitely going to help him out in the championship. But Leighton could be looking at the lead of the championship after this Grand Prix weekend, with T FIFA currently P5, but Paco is now coming out on the soft tyres, and I think he'll be trying to go for that fastest lap, and he can do this much as he likes, as he's in last place, and just keep coming in for the fresh softs and trying to set as many fastest laps as possible. And this allows T FIFA to also come to pit lane whenever he likes to try and go for a fastest lap too, as looks like those drivers and Seb are all going to be pushing quite hard, whereas Formula Jonah, Samuel Beach and Leighton are just cruising on their medium compounded tyres. But right now Seb hasn't actually caught Leighton by any time at all, as looks like Leighton might have made a mistake coming out of turn 3 there, as he gained 2/10 in one turn. So he didn't gain any time on the last lap, but he's now got it down to 1.6 seconds, and quite close to the back of Leighton, as Formula Jonah actually gets the first 3-second penalty of the Grand Prix, so that's quite impressive to see that no one struggled with the track limits, but no driver has been under any real pressure this race, apart from the opening few laps of Seb, now 3/10 down on his best time. Can't keep up with that kind of pace for the entire race. He's actually lost a 10 to Leighton ahead of him, so he might struggle to catch Leighton, but he really needs to catch him if he wants to win here at Zandvoort. So let's see if Seb can give it to him. And coming through turn 1 now, he's 1.7 seconds behind, and quite a while behind, and might not be looking at a win in this race unless he can pick up the pace, or once Leighton's tyres start to fall off, that might be the time that he gets an advantage and looks for a win, as it's definitely very possible on the soft tires. As it looks like Formula Jonah actually comes into pit lane, and it's also to retire from the session, and that's going to give Paco an extra 2 points in the championship, and T-FIFA as well, which I'm sure both of them will be delighted with. But since Formula Jonah is only a reserve, points don't matter that much, so just retired from the session, and we're down to just 5 runners, and really not too many talking points as Paco sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. As Leighton actually gets himself a 3-second time penalty. So he's pushing quite hard to try and keep Seb out of the DRS, and that has caused him to get himself a 3-second time penalty. So as long as Seb can stay within 3 seconds of Leighton, he'll be looking at a win in this Grand Prix. And who knows, maybe Samuel Beach can try and catch up to that 3-second gap and get himself P2 in this race. But as things are looking, it looks like Seb will win this race with Leighton in P2, Samuel Beach in P3, T-FIFA in P4, and Paco in P5, with the fastest lap of the Grand Prix actually dipping into the 111s with a 111.7, and that's definitely a very good time from Paco. we now enter the final lap of the Grand Prix. And at some point, Leighton got himself a 3-second time penalty, but he's been able to keep Seb behind, and the gap is now 6 seconds. So it looks like Leighton, even on his worn medium tyres, was faster than Seb on his fresh softs. And it looks like so long as he can keep it nice and clean going through this final lap, he's going to get himself the victory here at Zandvoort in his second one in a row. 2 in just 3 races, but it looks like he's run out of fuel. He's under-fueled the car, and this has caused him to lose a lot of speed on the straight, and this might allow Seb to get back within that 3-second gap, and it looks like it's going to do just that. So it looks like Seb, after Leighton under-fueling his car, is able to get back within that 3-second gap and take the win here at Zandvoort. So Seb wins the Grand Prix for Aston Martin, and I'm sure he's going to be happy with that result after a very late change for Leighton losing his fuel like that. So Seb's definitely going to gain quite a few points in the championship, and Leighton's going to be very disappointed with himself. Samuel Beach getting his first podium of the season. T-FIFA finishing P4, trying to go for the fastest lap on the final lap of the Grand Prix when his car is at its lightest. Paco finishes P5, so a decent day for Alpine, getting P2 and P5. But Seb ultimately taking the victory. T-FIFA now sets a purple Sector 2 and looking to steal the fastest lap away from XD Paco. He's going to have to beat a 1:11.7. He's looking to get quite close to the 1:10s in a race situation. Let's see what kind of time is it across the line. And it looks like a 1:11.5 for T-FIFA, and that's enough to give him the fastest lap of the Grand Prix and that one extra championship point. And Leighton getting driver of the day, moving all the way from P8 to P2, with Seb converting his pole position into a win after some late race drama with Leighton running out of fuel. But that is going to be it for the Dutch Grand Prix. Not too much action in that middle part of the race, but hope for a lot more in the next one. And this is definitely going to be quite big in the championship, to say the least. But the next race on the calendar is going to be at Portugal, and that is definitely going to be an interesting race. Very difficult to get the tyre temperatures right, and the tyre degradation is very high. But there is your final finishers, with Seb winning that race in the end, and Leighton getting P2, and Samuel with his first podium of the season. But that is going to be it. I hope you somewhat enjoyed this stream, at least the sprint qualifying, and also the start of the race had some decent action, and even some last lap drama at the end there. But that is going to be it for round 3 and the sprint qualifying format here in the Netherlands. And I hope to see you all next week at 8 o'clock BST on Tuesdays for ERA. And remember, if you do want to race in this league and get in on the action or bring it here, be sure to join the Discord in the link in the description. But that is going to be all from ERA today, and hopefully I'll see you all next week. Goodbye.